Coming up on Animalia, hundreds of Palestinians flock to see a miraculous lamb. 4 rescued chimps are making up for lost time. The playful piglets turning Thailand's tigers into pussycats. A rare donkey is rather shy about his first public outing in Germany. And the latest trend in artist models, cockroaches. Germany's Berlin Zoo has proudly announced the recent birth of some of the world's most poisonous creatures. And when newborns are described as extremely dangerous with an irritable disposition and ready to strike with little or no warning, there's no surprise that zookeeper Bodo Vogt is feeling just a tiny bit nervous. His new charges are rattlesnakes, but not just any rattlesnakes, tropical rattlesnakes, the bad boys of the reptile world. These slithering rageaholics joined the king cobra, the bushmaster, and African mamba as the most aggressive snakes on Earth. And it also explains why the wary zookeeper has them on such a long stick, well away from his body. Unlike most snakes that avoid man whenever possible, tropical rattlesnakes aren't shy about making their displeasure known. Some have even been seen to bite first and rattle later. The zoo has 18 of these seething serpents, and although they're only a month old, they're even more poisonous than their parents, as their venom is more concentrated. And while most other snakes have either neurotoxic or hemotoxic venom, tropical rattlers have both, which means they can simultaneously destroy a victim's central nervous system, break down their red blood cells, stop the heart, and paralyze their lungs, all with just one bite. Originating from South America, the 30-centimetre long babies will remain in the German capital for 3 to 4 more months, before they'll eventually find new homes at other zoos throughout Europe. Hundreds of Palestinians gathered to see a newborn lamb in the West Bank town of Hebron. Onlookers said the lamb was clear evidence of God's existence, as it was born with the word Allah written on one side and Muhammad on the other. Palestinians said the Arabic letters of the name of God could be made out on the lamb's left flank, but it was harder to see the name of the Prophet Muhammad in the curly coat. The lamb's owner, Yahya Atrash, held an impromptu prayer session with the newborn in his arms as the crowd gave thanks for the miraculous sign. Many Palestinians traveled through several Israeli army checkpoints just to see the lamb. Jamil Mohammed Alam said he'd heard the stories but had to come and see the remarkable creature with his own 2 eyes. Hundreds of bird watchers from Malaysia, Singapore and as far afield as Europe visited Port Dickson, a beach resort south of Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, for the annual Raptor Watch organised by the Malaysian Nature Society. Armed with cameras and binoculars, the bird watchers delight in seeing the birds of prey, or raptors, as they soar overhead on their migratory flight to the breeding grounds in Siberia. The most common birds that fly through the beach resort are the honey buzzards, Chinese goshawks, and the Japanese sparrowhawks. The Nature Society's volunteers counted more than 10,000 raptors gliding over Port Dickson's Tanjung Tuan district over the weekend. The Society also puts up an information booth for their 4-day Raptor Watch. Tanjung Tuan is the closest point on the Asian mainland to Sumatra, and it's at this narrow gap that the birds cross the Malacca Straits before continuing their journey. The large birds need the area's warm thermals to help them glide, as their bodies are too heavy for them to flap their wings constantly. According to the Nature Society's Bird Conservation Council, raptors eat pests like rats and snakes that damage the rice fields. So there's a sound economic reason for ensuring they continue to fly overhead. But that's not the only reason, says the council. They're also majestic, beautiful creatures and part of our amazing web of life. 4 baby chimpanzees, Hazel, Kubo, William and Victor, are almost ready to travel to their new home at the Chimp Sanctuary in Zambia. They'll set off as soon as their quarantine in the Kenyan capital Nairobi is over and their travel documents are ready. The youngsters were rescued from war-torn southern Sudan, where people were keeping them as pets. 2 of them had actually been chained to trees. Tales that they were being mistreated and humiliated reached the Kenyan Wildlife Service, which finally rescued them. Chimpanzees are known to be man's closest living relatives, with a genetic makeup 98.7% similar to humans. The male chimpanzees are between 4 to 5 years old and arrived in good health. They're being cared for by Kenyan Wildlife Service animal handlers and veterinarians. At the quarantine centre, they're fed 3 meals a day, which includes plenty of fruit and water and a balanced diet of carbohydrates, proteins and vitamins. Handlers preparing meals for the chimps will often add some slices of garlic, which keeps them from getting colds and also helps with their digestion. As they munch away, the chimps display a lot of facial expressions. Like humans, they smile when they're eating something they enjoy and frown when they've bitten into something they don't like. That, and the fact they often ask for more, indicates to the handlers that they're more than happy with their new diets. A special treat comes at the end of each meal, when the cheeky monkeys are allowed to dip their digits into a honey jar. The finger-licking good session is also used as a sign that the meal is complete. It's estimated that 1,000 apes were exported as pets from Africa in the last 10 years, despite the fact that it's illegal to keep them as pets in most countries. Thousands more are killed every year to feed the bushmeat trade. But Hazel, Kubo, William and Victor are finally safe. Their unhappy past can now make way for a happy future, as they join 80 other chimps at a purpose-built sanctuary in Zambia, where they could live peacefully for another 60 years. Cologne Zoo recently introduced a 3-week-old southern poodoo, the world's smallest deer. Poodoos are extremely rare in zoos, but like all deer babies, they're born with spots which act as camouflage to protect them against wild animals. Young southern poodoo eventually lose their white spots at around 3 to 5 months of age. The adult animals reach a shoulder height of just 30 centimetres and originally come from the woodland area at the southern tip of South America. A fawn will usually remain hidden for a number of days after birth, only emerging to suckle when the mother poodoo visits. After a few weeks, the fawn joins its mother in her normal range and will stay with her for 8 to 12 months. Male poodoo begin growing their first spike antlers at 8 months, which will eventually reach 9 centimetres in length when they're about 7 years old. The Sriracha Zoo in Chonburi, a town 70 kilometres east of Bangkok, is Thailand's most successful breeding zoo. They say that their success is largely based on a breeding scheme that has to be seen to be believed. Oh, and in case you haven't guessed, they're not breeding pigs here, they're breeding tigers. The bizarre program began in 1997 when creative zookeepers decided to try nursing a pig to replace the mother of an orphan tiger cub. They were surprised to find that not only were the pig and its offspring happy to accept the cub as a member of the family, the cub grew up to be calm, non-aggressive and perfectly suited to life in captivity. Now, all of Sriracha's 300 Bengali tigers are raised in this way. Taken from their mother at only a week old, their eyes are still closed and they hardly notice the move at all. Visitors can stare for hours at this truly unusual sight, but as far as the cubs are concerned, the sow really is their mother. The 2-week-old tiger cubs will continue suckling alongside the piglets for the next 2 months. But if you think you've seen everything, you'd better brace yourselves for one more surprise. Apparently, tigers who go through this program will never attack a pig, even though they only spend the first 2 months of their lives living alongside them. So, while most tigers would think of a piglet as little more than a light snack between meals, these piglets are happy to play with fully grown tigers and even fall asleep on them when playtime's over. Visitors stand at the window in shock, expecting to see the worst. But Zoo Secretary Nipa Chiraratapichiat assures them that no pigs have ever been killed by tigers in the 6 years that the program's been running. The playful piglets climb all over the gentle big cats and generally drive them crazy. But the tigers, who see the pigs as pesky siblings, would never try to hurt them, although a gentle shove with a huge paw isn't out of the question. The program has meant that Sriracha's tigers are more manageable and safer for human contact. For tourists who visit the nursery, the reward is a photo they can have taken with a real-life, friendly tiger. A baby Poitou donkey named Louis has taken pride of place at Berlin's Friedrichsfelder Zoo after being presented to the public for the very first time. Native to France, the Poitou donkey is the largest of all donkeys and the world's finest working mule. The Romans introduced them into the Poitou marshland region of France, valuing their large ears, strong legs and long brown shaggy coats. The Poitou region played a significant role in supplying strong quality mules to be bred with the Molassier horse. The result was today's friendly, affectionate and docile Poitou donkey. Louis was fathered by a stallion and born to a mare named Vivonne, both of whom were also bred at the zoo. Evidence has shown that this breed was already well established by 1717. In its heyday, the Poitou region was producing as many as 30,000 mules per year. But the modern advent of automobiles and tractors led to a swift decline in draft animals. By 1977, only 44 donkeys remained in the pens of a few dedicated breeders. Fortunately, the alarm was raised and efforts to save the breed began. Today, there are around 180 purebred Poitou donkeys left. For baby Louis, his first public appearance seemed to exhaust him. When the camera crews and photographers finally left, the long-legged, long-eared foal flopped down beside Mum and found time for a much-needed nap. New York's Catherine Chalmers has got the artistic bug in more ways than one. She takes arty photographs of an insect which makes most people squirm. The dreaded cockroach is her muse. She shares her home with hundreds of insects she treats as invited guests and objects of art for her creative experiments. The artist photographer has even built an intricate doll's house, complete with lavatory bowl for her cockroaches to run around in. The reason the cockroaches have been given their own miniature doll's house is so that Catherine can photograph them in it, to make the point that these insects can take over the abodes of human beings. She describes her first few months of working with cockroaches, saying that she had nightmares every night that they were escaping. Catherine's exhibition, entitled Executions, features a series of black and white prints depicting cockroaches being executed in way human beings are normally put to death. One cockroach sits on an electric chair, a bolt of electricity striking its head. In another depiction, rows of cockroaches hang from nooses. The cockroach has even inspired Chalmers to move into video art. One movie short shows a cockroach tied to a stake, being burnt alive, but Catherine stresses she's never killed an animal, however small, for her art. She says she tied a live roach to a stake, but it wasn't flames but gentle blowing on its stomach, which in fact caused it to squirm and wriggle in the video. The images of smoke and fire were added digitally. The project involved some intricate work, as Chalmers created dozens of miniature electric chairs and nooses to place dead cockroaches in before photographing them. She stresses any dead roaches she uses died of natural causes. But she adds that now she has a newfound respect for the insects and tries to see them purely in artistic terms. Executions examines our relationship with the animal world, our desire to kill cockroaches and our fear of the insects. The exhibition also invites the viewer to compare the popular consciousness about cockroaches with feelings typically experienced about images of human tools of execution. Back in 2001, after the September 11 tragedy, firemen, police and emergency personnel descended on the scene of what was once the World Trade Center. They were joined by search and rescue dogs who were there to help sniff out what the searcher couldn't ferret out themselves. The dogs arrived from around the country and were working the same long hours as their handlers. Rottweilers, German Shepherds and Labrador Retrievers, among other breeds, were trained to search and rescue, and they were working until they were exhausted in an attempt to find any survivors among the ruins. David Martinez and his dog Nitro were working non-stop. Nitro breathed in the same soot and ash as his human counterparts, but he senses things that they missed. The dogs aren't impervious to cuts, scrapes, exhaustion and burns. At Pier 40 on Manhattan's west side, owners bring their dogs in for first aid. Ansi has been at Ground Zero for days, and he came into the shelter to rest and receive some encouragement. Chris Showalter brought his dog Wilco hundreds of miles to aid in the rescue effort. He said they worked non-stop and broke it up into 1 and 2 hour increments. Of course, history now dictates that there was very little encouragement for these rescuers and their canine co-workers after their arduous workdays. Dogs are known for being man's best friend, but the bond between one World Trade Center worker and his dog is literally life-saving. Minutes after the first plane crashed into the North Tower, guide dog Roselle leapt into action, leading her blind master down 78 flights of stairs to safety. It was the walk of their lives, 78 flights of fuel-filled stairs. Mike Hinkson, who's been blind from birth, says the only way he made it down safely was due to his guide dog. On the morning of September 11, Mike was preparing for a business meeting on the 78th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Then a plane smashed into the top of the tower. Mike says he felt the building shake and sway. When the tower shifted back into position, he grabbed Roselle and made straight for the emergency stairs. He knew it would take a long time, but couldn't risk the elevator after smelling the fuel and smoke from up above. As people crowded down the emergency stairs and firefighters made their way past them, Mike says Roselle maintained her calm. While Mike and his wife are still trying to come to terms with what's happened, Roselle seems to have taken the terrible disaster in her stride. The first Sumatran rhino to be born in captivity in 112 years is 2 weeks old. Emmy, an 11-year-old Sumatran rhino, delivered her calf on September the 13th in the privacy of her stall at the Cincinnati Zoo in Cincinnati, Ohio. The calf was able to stand about 5 minutes later. Zoo scientists and workers are thrilled with the birth, saying the pregnancy and delivery is the culmination of years of research. Dr. Terry Roth is the director of the Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research of Endangered Wildlife. She used ultrasound technology and hormone analysis to discover that these types of rhinos are induced ovulators, meaning eggs are released from the ovary only after mating with a male. Emmy suffered 5 miscarried pregnancies before carrying one through the 15 to 17-month term. The Sumatran rhino is the most endangered species of one of the most endangered mammalian species in the world. there are thought to be just 300 Sumatran rhinos in the wild and just 16 in captivity. Endangered species conservationists hope that zoos throughout the world will be better able now to boost the population through breeding in captivity. Thomas Foos, the program director of the International Rhino Foundation, says that hopes are very high right now that they're on the verge of success of a major breakthrough, and that they'll be able in the not too distant future, using the methods that have been developed at the Cincinnati Zoo, to regularly reproduce this species under managed conditions. Both the parents, Emmy and Ipu, are on loan to the US from the Indonesian government, which has been given the honour of naming the newborn rhino. Any suggestions? Now this is Telford in England, home of the Grand National Sheep Race. The 12th running of the race, which took part at Hoo Farm in the Midlands, attracted 18 entries with 16 starting. Hoo Farm hosts regular sheep races, but only the Grand National has such a large field. The Sheep Grand National is run over a furlong, or 201 metres, and, like its equine equivalent, on a horseshoe-shaped course. The sheep, who all came to the farm as orphans, carried knitted jockeys on their backs. They start the race from their field and race over the jumps towards the finish. A food trough. Bleating Tom was the race favourite, with 3 times winner Sylvester Stallone also well fancied. When the race got underway, the field was tightly packed, although the 11-year-old Sylvester Stallone struggled to keep up with the pace set by the younger sheep. Greyface was in the leading pack from the off and fought off a fierce challenge from Biggles Bomber to win by a head. Bilbo Baggins finished 3rd. Well, it looks like everybody had a good time, especially the sheep. There's the one I had my money on. Ah, well, I guess she'll come in handy as a nice woolly sweater. Oh, sorry, I didn't know that was your mum.
Madasa